Read on logbook here to explain the Buggy Pirates in One Piece. So the Buggy Pirates start off with Buggy the Clown. Before that, he was actually an apprentice pirate on the Roger Pirates. He didn't really do much, but as an apprentice pirate, he basically hung around with Shanks, and the two of them would fight together whenever Roger was in combat with other pirate crews or the Navy. Eventually, the Roger Pirates ended up discovering a devil fruit. The crew wasn't entirely sure if this was a real devil fruit or not, and so Buggy decided to scam everyone when he found out how valuable it was by pretending to eat it. He just ate a regular fruit. And when nothing happened, everyone just assumed it was a regular fruit and not a devil fruit. That is, until he got spooked by Shanks, because he assumed Shanks was catching him stealing the devil fruit, and he accidentally ate the entire fruit whole. By the way, it was a pineapple. So Buggy accidentally ate an entire pineapple whole, somehow. And after doing so, he gained the powers of the Chop Chop fruit, which basically allow you to split up your body as if you're being cut apart however you see fit. It also makes you immune to cutting attacks, as long as they do use hockey. And there seems to be no upper limit to how much you can be cut apart, because Mihawk turned Buggy into basically shredded paper, and he still was able to put himself back together. Unfortunately for Buggy, while he's immune to all cutting attacks, he is not immune to blunt force trauma or explosions. As for the main function of his ability, once again, he can separate his body parts however he sees fit, and they all have the ability to fly, except for his feet, which have to stay grounded, or someone else can carry them. But mainly his feet are the only part of him that cannot fly. This also makes his feet the center point of his powers, where the rest of his body parts that are flying about aren't allowed to exceed a certain limit from his feet. If they do exceed this limit, they just fall down, unable to move. Fortunately, even if one of his body parts exceeds the limit of their range and just flops down, unable to move, Buggy is able to sense where his body parts are at an infinite distance, and he just head towards it within range of them, and then they can move about again. So he can never actually lose his body parts, at least not permanently. Buggy would continue on as a member of Roger's crew up until it disbanded and all the crew members were scattered across the world. Buggy seems to have gone along with Shanks for a period of time up until a year later when it was announced that Roger would be executed. Both Shanks and Buggy went to their former captain's execution, and, well, they cried. Afterwards, Buggy then planned on joining Shanks' crew, so the two of them then go after the One Piece. When Shanks informed Buggy that he wasn't going to do that right away, Buggy felt betrayed by Shanks because he thought Shanks was the inheritor of Roger's will, and him choosing not to go after the One Piece was a massive betrayal. And so Buggy, at that point, basically told Shanks to screw off, and the two separated. And from there, Buggy started his own crew, the Buggy Pirates. And for the next 22 years, the Buggy Pirates just terrorized the East Blue. Now, Buggy, because he was born with a giant red nose, which he is very sensitive about, he will kill you if you ever bring it up, or even the color red, he found a way to hide the fact that he has a giant red nose by making everyone think that it's just a fake plastic nose. And he does this by forming a pirate crew based on the circus. His two staff officers, Moji and Kajabi, are based off of an acrobat and an animal tamer. Kajabi, as the acrobatic, can do literally almost anything you see in a circus, and he turned that into his fighting style. So to increase his speed, he rides on a unicycle, he adds juggling to his sword fighting, and so he actually can fight with actually more swords than Zoro, which is crazy to think about, and he can breathe fire. And Moji, the animal tamer, was successful in training a lion to fight for him, if it feels like it. The lion Richie has its own very unique personality where it is guided solely by its stomach. And if Moji wants him to do anything, he just has to bribe him with food. And if Moji refuses to bribe him, Richie will just ignore him. Then you have the standard crewmates, which are split into different squads. You have the tightropers, which probably means they have great balance on their feet when fighting. The superhuman Domingos, which are probably the strong men of the circus, implying that they're probably the physical strongest of the crew, outside of the officers, of course. And finally, the acrobatic Fuwas, which are probably people who fight in a similar fashion as Kabaji, but they probably can't do every trick that he can do. So some can probably do his fighting style with multiple swords, others can probably increase their speed with the unicycles, and then you get the breathing fire guys. But they're all basically wrapped into one group. Buggy and his crew also, in this time period, worked on the Buggy Ball. It is a special cannonball that has the power to wipe out an entire small town in one shot. And so this pretty large crew, based on East Blue standards at least, terrorized the East Blue until eventually Buggy got a bounty on his head of 15 million. At a certain point, Buggy kind of got tired of terrorizing the East Blue and decided, I want to go to the Grand Line. And so he decided to set up shop in a small town called Orangetown. There, he basically terrorized the entire populace to flee to the woods, while him and his crew then decided to basically steal and eat whatever they want in the village. The reason why he did this is because he was waiting for the other crew members that he sent out to collect a map of the Grand Line. Now, in modern One Piece, this doesn't really make any sense. You can't really have a map of the Grand Line, but Oda was still figuring things out. Anyway, he was waiting for his crew member to return, and when he did, that crew member then revealed he didn't have the map. In fact, it was stolen by some kind of thief before he was able to steal it. And so, Buggy's response to that was to blow up that crewmate with one of his buggy bombs. The man was completely vaporized. And so this would eventually lead Buggy meeting Straw Hat Luffy. Both crews would eventually fight over the map and basically control over Orange Town, because Buggy's plan was actually to destroy Orange Town right before he left. No particular reason, he just thought it would be funny to do so. But more importantly, while he was interacting with Luffy, he then discovers the hat that he's wearing actually belonged to Shanks, his old crewmate. As a result, he actually had more of a reason to kill Luffy than anyone else, because he was still very bitter and angry about Shanks' betrayal. This ended up being a massive failure because the Straw Hat Pirates just beat down the Buggy Pirates like it was nothing. Both Luffy and Zoro wiped out Buggy's entire crew, and Buggy himself, while in a fight with Luffy, while he was distracted, had all of his body parts tied up by Nami, and so the only parts he had control over in the end of it was his head, both his hands, and both his feet. And so Luffy then launched him into the stratosphere. This led to the Buggy Pirates being separated into two groups, Buggy by himself and his crew, starting with Buggy. So Buggy actually survived being launched into the stratosphere because he landed on an island. Buggy builds himself a little raft where he goes from island to island. Eventually he gets to one island where he decides to hunt down a bunch of baby birds to eat. The mother of the baby bird discovers this and decides it's going to eat Buggy instead. This bird is able to outsmart Buggy and then eats him, and then immediately spits him out because he tastes awful, and Buggy goes flying into the stratosphere a second time. This time he lands on an island with strange animals and Gaimon. The two of them actually try fighting and killing each other, but eventually they make up, have a party, and become friends. Buggy then says his farewells when he builds a second raft. He doesn't end up going very far before a giant crab attacks him, destroys his raft, and is about to eat him, when he is then saved by Alvida. Alvida then explains that she's looking for Luffy. Buggy is also looking for Luffy because he wants to kill him, and the two decide to form the Buggy-Alvida Alliance. Okay, so now let's jump back over to the rest of his crew. So after they wake up after their beating from the Straw Hats, the Buggy Pirates realize their captain is missing and they discover his remaining body parts. They collect them and then immediately get the hell out of town because they're currently being chased by the townspeople who are now pissed off at the Buggy Pirates for blowing up part of their town. They are able to successfully escape onto a deserted island, or at least that they think is a deserted island, and the first thing they do is bury the body parts of their former captain because they believe Buggy is now dead. Monji and Kapichi then get into an argument over who should be the new captain, and they decide it should be the strongest, and so the two of them start beating the shit out of each other. The fight seems to last an entire day, with neither able to win, until eventually Richie wakes up from his nap and knocks the both of them unconscious with a single blow. And so the rest of the Buggy crew then declare Richie the new captain of the Buggy Pirates. This is short-lived because immediately after this, they are then attacked by the natives. And they are a bunch of savage cannibals who beat down the entirety of the Buggy Pirates, again, and decide to cook them. The entirety of the Buggy Pirates would have died at this moment if it wasn't for the fact that Buggy is able to sense where his body parts are, and him and Alvida were immediately able to get there in time. Buggy got power over his body parts, and he was then able to beat down the natives. The entire crew celebrated, remaking Buggy their captain. Now with both his body and crew back, Buggy can finally get his revenge on Luffy. Buggy, since he was a member of Roger's crew, he actually knows how to get to the Grand Line through Reverse Mountain, and the only way to get there is to take a stop at Logtown, the town of the beginning and the end, the town where Buggy actually had to watch his captain be executed. With that being said, he didn't seem very bothered by being there. He was solely focused on finding and killing Luffy. He does succeed at the first part. He does find Luffy, and he's actually able to ensnare him in a trap, and he's able to lock him in the execution tower. And Buggy becomes the first and the closest person to ever kill Luffy, where he's actually about to lop off his head with a sword, but right before that happens, he is then struck by lightning. This not just takes out Buggy, but also destroys the little tower and frees Luffy. Luffy's able to escape, and in the chaos, that is when the Marines attack, and both Buggy and Alvida are captured by Smoker. They would have been sent to Impel Down after this, but fortunately for them, a great wind came out of nowhere and was able to free everyone. This allowed both Buggy, Alvida, and their crew to escape. Buggy's still obsessed with killing Luffy. He decides, okay, I will follow him into the Grand Line to get my revenge. Buggy seems to stick to this for a while, because he even talks with Ace about it, but at a certain point, Buggy seems to just get bored with going after Luffy, and decides he'd rather go after treasure, and he decides he's going to go after Captain John's treasure. In the process of looking for Captain John's treasure, he is captured by Bulgard, the right hand of Vice Admiral Garp. This once again leads to the separation of the crew because the rest of the Buggy Pirates were able to escape. The rest of the Buggy Pirates then are taken over by Alvida, creating the new Alvida Pirates, and Buggy is sent to Impel Down. Because of his extremely low bounty, he's only locked in the first floor of Impel Down, the Crimson Hell. All inmates on this floor are forced to walk through the Red Forest. The entirety of the forest is artificial. It's nothing but blades. The trees, the grass, the flowers, and not just that, but there are also poisonous spiders that are also released within the forest. Buggy was unaffected because the guards at Impel Down did not know that he had a devil fruit, and with the Chop Chop fruit, he could just walk through the Crimson Forest without any issue. This also allowed him to escape from his handcuffs, because they weren't sea prison stone, and make his attempt to escape. In the process, he ends up running into Luffy, who's there to save his brother. Buggy actually agrees to help Luffy get to the second floor, but then after that, he plans to ditch him and use him as bait so he can escape. This does not work out for Buggy at all. Instead, because of Luffy and his own incompetence, he continuously falls down more and more levels all the way down to level 4. On this accidental descension deeper and deeper into Impel Down, he actually ends up meeting who will basically become his partner in Impel Down, Mr. 3. Buggy and Mr. 3 immediately become friends when they both realize that they're pieces of shit who want to abandon Luffy and escape together. The two of them just hit it off so well with their personalities. And yes, after falling down to the 4th floor, eventually they are then able to work their way back up to the 1st floor, releasing as many prisoners as humanly possible in the process. They're still not able to escape thanks to Magellan wiping out half their army in one go. Fortunately for Buggy and them, Luffy, after making it all the way down to the 6th floor, is able to then make his way back up to the 1st floor, also freeing as many people as possible to carry as much chaos in the prison. And so hundreds of prisoners from the 1st floor all the way down to the 6th floor are all able to escape from Impel Down, thanks to a collection of different people, from Jinbei to Crocodile to Mr. 2. From here, Buggy's luck just continues to go up and up, because the Navy then realizes who Buggy is after doing a background check on him, and they basically announce to the world that Buggy was a member of Roger's crew. As a result of this, all the other prisoners who were on the ship, except for the intelligent ones, this being Crocodile, Jinbei, and Mr. 3, basically throw themselves at the feet of Buggy as their savior, believing he's on par with the 4 emperors. Buggy ends up leading his new army to the Marineford, where they basically do nothing during the war except try to film a propaganda piece, but Buggy is really shy and incapable of doing anything on camera. But the important part is that his legend continues to grow when, 1, he forms an alliance with Whitebeard. Not really, it's just that Whitebeard had enough to deal with at the time. He didn't want to have to deal with the more powerful members of Buggy's crew that escaped from Impel Down, and so he decided to pretend to form an alliance with Buggy. But the idiots that are following him believe that this is a real alliance. On top of that, Buggy then fought with Mihawk and survived. Not really, Mihawk just threw him away, he didn't really care about him. But once again, this continued to make everyone believe that Buggy was this amazing warrior. And the third and final thing, he ends up in an argument with Shanks, right in front of everyone in the entire world, and so this leads to everyone once again believing that, oh my god, this guy is on par with emperors. And so, after the war ends, Buggy is then able to escape and make it back to his crew, with an entire army of Impel Down inmates with him. Also, Mr. 3 becoming one of his officers. Also, the legend of Buggy continues to spread worldwide after this, because of all those amazing things he did during the war were on camera. As a result, the world now believes Buggy is this great pirate, not just his idiot crew members. And so the Navy then offers Buggy a warlord title, which he takes immediately. On top of this, pretty much everyone just folds underneath him, because if you are underneath a warlord, you get immunity as a pirate. This is actually where the Buggy-Alvida Pirate Alliance ends, and Alvida just becomes an officer under Buggy. The entire Buggy crew then goes to the New World and sets up their base on Karkuri Island. Here, Buggy forms the Buggy Pirate Delivery Service, which is a mercenary organization that, well, is hired out by anyone for pirate mercenaries to do their dirty work. Buggy is able to amass an army in the hundreds by doing this. Most likely, pirates who come to the New World immediately fail, and then basically have to choose to either join one of the Four Emperors or join Buggy's flag. This was the highest point for the Buggy crew ever. With that being said, it would get even better when the alliance between Straw Hat Luffy and Law took down Doflamingo. As a result of this, the criminal underworld lost access to a bunch of illegal weapons, and so the Buggy delivery service was now needed around the world. With this, Buggy was without a doubt in the top 10 most powerful underworld bosses. Buggy and the rest of his officers would continue to live the high life for a period of time until the world government decided to abolish the warlord system. With that, the Navy immediately attacked his home base. The entire Buggy delivery service then started to freak out, wondering what they're going to do with the Navy bearing down on them. But Buggy, as the captain, stood up and gave a grand speech about how they were not going to be destroyed by the Navy and how they're going to fight back and defeat their enemy. And in the back of his head, he was planning on running away and leaving all of his men to die. Unfortunately for Buggy, it did not work out that way, because the Navy was then wiped out by Crocodile. Now, Crocodile did not come and help Buggy out of the kindness of his heart. No, he did this because Crocodile actually gave Buggy a loan when he became a warlord. Buggy used that loan to start the Buggy Pirate Delivery Service. And now Crocodile wanted to get that loan back. The only problem is, Buggy spent the money as quickly as it came in. And so even though his organization was making probably millions a month, him and all of his officers spent all of it faster than it came in. Crocodile then decided he was going to kill Buggy. But Buggy was then able to convince Crocodile to spare his life and just take over the Buggy delivery service, because while he doesn't have the money, he still used the money responsibly to create a massive organization. All Crocodile has to do is just take over the organization, and then he can do what he wants with it. This was such a reasonable offer, Crocodile actually spared Buggy's life. And so, Crocodile, Mihawk, and Buggy declare the creation of Cross Guild, a pirate organization similar to the Navy, where they put up bounties on Marines. Unfortunately, and also fortunately for Buggy, what him, Crocodile, and Mihawk didn't realize is that Buggy's crew is super loyal to him because they've been brainwashed into believing he's a god. And so, when the crew sent out posters announcing Cross Guild, they put Buggy right on the front, making him look like the leader, and Crocodile and Mihawk being his underlings. Neither Crocodile nor Mihawk liked that, and decided to beat his fucking ass. The only reason why they didn't kill him is because, and I quote, he's entertaining the torture. What makes it even more absurd is that the announcement of Cross Guild happened at the exact same time two of the Yonko were defeated and overthrown, Kaido and Big Mom. As a result, there were 2 spots left open, and Buggy, as the leader of Cross Guild, and the leader of 2 other warlords, was made an Emperor of the Sea. This, of course, pissed off Crocodile, and he was planning on actually killing Buggy as soon as he found out about this, but Mihawk then declared, it's fine, let him be the figurehead, as long as we get to run it and do what we want, who cares? This convinced Crocodile, and so they decided to make Buggy the official figurehead, captain of the Cross Guild. And the 2 of them would be the officers and the actual leaders. But it actually gets even more absurd, because Buggy was not done. Now that he made it all to an emperor, even though it was done by sheer luck, he was now one of the 4 men closest to the One Piece. Buggy then decides he's going to insult both Crocodile and Mihawk, saying that they're small fry thinking, that the 2 of them are too focused on just killing Marines and doing insignificant stuff like that. They should go after the One Piece. They should declare war on the other emperors. Both Mihawk and Crocodile said, we're not doing that, and we're not going to help you become king. That's ridiculous. But Buggy did not care. He actually showed a backbone for the first time ever in his life. Without Mihawk or Crocodile noticing, he turned on Edenden Mushi and then announced to all of Cross Guild and the world that he wanted to be king of the pirates and that they're going for the One Piece. And unfortunately for both Crocodile and Mihawk, not wanting to seem weak and save face, they are now stuck having to figure out a way to make Buggy the Clown king of the pirates. And that is currently everything that we know about the Buggy Pirates. So if you enjoy this video, subscribe, give a thumbs up so you enjoy more One Piece and other many things. Thank you and have a great day.